Hello, everyone. Welcome to your March 2026 monthly horoscope for each rising sign. Now, I think March carries a very specific atmosphere. We have Mars moving into Pisces very early in March, alongside a Mercury retrograde in Pisces as well, where Mercury is in detriment and technically fall as well. And this combination where Mars is very fiery, it's action oriented, it's moving into water, where water kind of puts that fire, kind of puts some of it out. And the direction kind of gains a new perspective, in addition to Mercury retrograde delaying, reviewing, revising, perfecting something in this area, and also tying in the rulers of the other areas that those planets rule, which I'll get into in each rising sign to consider. But this combination is not loud or decisive, generally speaking. Now, this doesn't mean that some of you are not going to be making decisions or moving things forward. I just think generally the energy of March is not very loud or decisive. I think it's more reflective, internal, and even clarifying for some of us, where we're gaining different perspectives and maybe seeing where we can use our energy in different ways. Now, when Mars moves through Pisces, I think our energy can definitely feel different. It depends on your natal chart, but it can sometimes feel a bit diffused, maybe scattered. Some of us could even be feeling pulled in different directions, right? Pisces can be porous, it's multidimensional. The boundaries can, now that Saturn's out of Pisces, the boundaries are a little bit different. Things feel a little different there. And so the energy can feel just pulled in different directions for some of us. And we might even notice where our motivations have been pulled in different directions, or leaking, or fragmented, internally, maybe through confusion, overextension, or self-doubt for some of us. Or some of us could be seeing it externally through the obligations, the distractions, and even sort of misguided or misplaced effort or motivation. And then, like I mentioned, we have this Mercury retrograde in the mix of the story in March. And I think instead of pushing forward, the cosmos sort of are asking us to pause and review. Now, if you have Mercury retrograde in your natal chart, this might not resonate with you at all. So again, this is not conclusive. You have to take your natal chart into consideration. But some of us might be asking ourselves, what's been draining us? Where does our energy feel a bit fragmented? What no longer deserves your life force? I wanted to put March into perspective because there is so much launching and so many planetary movements initiating in April of 2026, so right around the corner. So how can we align our energy? How can we pull our power and energy back after a revisionary period with this Mercury retrograde, with Mars also finishing up eclipse season? Where have things changed? Where do things feel different for a lot of us? So I don't think this is necessarily the month for a lot of final answers, big declarations, absolute certainty or clarity. I think this is a good month of necessary closure that is preparing us for beginnings, initiating new chapters, new stories to really start to unfold in April of 2026, when we get new cycles with Saturn, Neptune, all of the personal planets, Venus, Mercury, Mars, even the sun, and a new moon really kicking off in Aries of April. So March is a really good time for, I think, perspective. So I think the Mercury retrograde can definitely give us insights that we need. And again, I'm going to be going through each rising sign, what Mercury rules in your chart, where those insights can be coming from. And Mars and Pisces, I think, can show us where our energy has been dissolved, or where do we want our motivations, our desires, our plan of actions to shift next month. And for some of you, it could even be a time of literally recharging your batteries for starting something new, or launching in a new direction next month in April. Now, I sat with this for a while, and the image that kept coming into my mind was the image of a slingshot. And it's sort of like the further you pull it back, the more resistance you feel. And so I think some of us might feel that resistance. Again, it depends on your natal chart. Some of you have really strong Mars or strong Mercuries. This might feel like a month of maybe like wanting to launch and like wanting to move things forward, but it's not quite the right time. Or some of you might really see yourselves moving in the direction, taking action on something, but you might not have the full tank of energy in order to do so. So again, this is going to show up in different ways for us, but I think, the slingshot kept popping into my mind, where it's like, the further you pull it back, the more resistance you feel. And I feel like that's March for a lot of us. It doesn't look like forward movement, right? When you pull the slingshot back, it hasn't launched yet. It hasn't had that forward movement yet. And so it can feel like a delay. It can feel resistance, like you're holding and you're ready to kind of, jump towards something. And I think the pulling back could be the time of recalibration in March. And that, if you're feeling that resistance, if you're feeling the fatigue, reviewing and revising sort of what Saturn has done the past couple of years, with Saturn being in Pisces and now officially out of Pisces, I think that could be a normal energy to feel in March. And that pulling back of that slingshot, that recalibration, that resistance, how far do you want to fly in April? And for a lot of us, I think March is the pullback. And it could be the reassessment, the reclaiming of power for a lot of us, and sort of where our motivations belong moving forward. So as I move through each rising sign, if it resonates, I want you to consider sort of how are these movements? What am I talking about? How is it helping you see new perspectives on how to gather yourself, how to gather more energy, where you want your energy to be redirected in April? What are you preparing to launch next month or move towards? And if you want a broader context on how this fits into sort of the whole year, my 2026 year ahead portal is still open. The links, in addition to like the website, all my other links are in the description and show notes below. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. I probably will be closing the 2026 year ahead portal next month, sometime in April, just because I want you guys to get your money's worth and get the majority of the year to prepare for. And April is really a launching point. So I think if you haven't gotten it now and you're still interested in it, I definitely recommend it. There is a lot more details in that. But anyways, let's get into March and your rising signs. Hi, Aries risings. March seems like a deeply internal month for you, before things really begin to accelerate in April. So we start off on March 3rd with this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in your Virgo 6th house. Now, I have a separate episode going much deeper into this eclipse, so be sure to listen to that for more detail if you haven't already. So for you, this eclipse is activating the 6th and 12th house axis with the sun and the moon in opposition in the chart. So, this can really be the axis of work and rest, productivity and surrender, physical health versus the mental spiritual health, service versus solitude. The 12th house is also hidden enemies, which isn't always people, by the way. But with Virgo, this full moon lunar eclipse in your Virgo 6th house, there could really be this illumination around your daily routines, your work habits, your health patterns, and really sort of the systems that keep your life running. But here's what I think is important with this eclipse. The ruler of this eclipse is Mercury. And Mercury is retrograde in your Pisces 12th house. So I don't think that this is just about changing your schedule here in your 6th. I think it's also about understanding what is draining you behind the scenes. What is draining you beneath the surface of your work, health, routines, sort of daily grind? And so for some of you, there could be something subconscious, something unprocessed, even energetically sort of leaking in the background that could be directly impacting your vitality and your productivity. So some of you might be really reviewing and revising that, maybe taking new perspectives on that, or even sort of overexerting yourselves regarding that, like really wanting to get to the bottom of that, if that resonates. Some of you might also maybe notice like those hidden enemies. Maybe there is sort of like a hidden something in your life that is contributing to what is happening around this time. So I think this eclipse for some Aries risings could really bring awareness to burnout patterns, where you're maybe over functioning, the even sort of like avoidance or escapism, or having new perspectives on where you've felt that, if that resonates in the past, especially with Saturn recently leaving this Pisces 12th house. And for some of you, you might really see like where you need the spiritual or even emotional or physical restoration after what's happened in the past couple years. So I don't think that this is necessarily just like a logical situation. I think it's energetic, it's mental. It could be really behind the scenes for a lot of you. So with Mercury retrograde in your 12th, I think this could really be revisionary, but in a very reflective way. Seeing what needs adjustment before major forward momentum returns in April, which I'll get to. So March 6th, let's jump to March 6th, when Venus enters your Aries first house. So on March 6th, Venus enters your sign, your rising sign. And I think this can be significant because Venus rules your second house of earned income, resources, self-worth, and your 7th house of relationships and partnerships, whether they're personal or professional. So as Venus moves through Aries, starting on March 6th, I think the conjunction that Venus is going to pretty much immediately apply to with Neptune and Saturn here in your first house of self is really powerful. for a couple of reasons. Venus sort of applying to Saturn here in your first house of self, where Saturn rules your 10th house and 11th house, could really be linking identity with your first house, money and self-worth with your second house, also relationships with your 7th, career, public life, what brings you fulfillment with your 10th, and long-term goals and networks with your 11th. So Venus and Saturn ruling these areas of sort of long-term goals, career, partnership, money, self-worth, could really be initiating this new cycle in your first house, where some of you might be creating new stories or seeing totally new stories unfold, where it's sort of like how you're merging your identity with your long-term ambitions and partnerships, again, personal or professional. So Saturn is that structure and realism, where Neptune can bring sort of like an idealism or vision. And I think together they can sort of reshape the relationship standards, your financial strategy, your long-term goals, and just overall the partnerships that you align with. So I think this is less about like a quick attraction and more about, for some of you, maybe redefining who you're becoming and who you want with you, who you want walking beside you, with what you're moving into, what you want to build, whatever it may be. That could be career related, just friends, groups, communities, or long-term goal related. Now, March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world, what time zone you're in, there is going to be a new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces 12th house. So I think this new moon for Aries risings, this could be more internal, sort of more quiet, but maybe a powerful reset for some of you. And this new moon occurs just before Mercury is about to station direct conjunct the North Node, which feels very significant because I think this suggests more internal insight, direction, maybe even a course correction for work, health, routines. And this new moon in your 12th house at 28 degrees will be sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus second house of earned income and self-worth. Now, remember, the last new moon, which was an eclipse in Aquarius, squared Uranus in your second house of earned income. So I think for some of you, back around mid-February, this could have highlighted friction, tension, the need to take action around community, long-term vision versus sort of your income, your security, or your values. And so there was maybe some tension, some adjustment, some action being taken around those themes last month, where this new moon this month on March 18th or 19th is a sextile to that Uranus. So this feels a bit different. This suggests more opportunity. It's a friendlier aspect. So maybe after a period of revision and even recalibration, you may now see sort of like a friendlier opening between long-term goals, financial stability, and your overall sense of self-worth. Or I would focus on those themes with maybe stepping into those long-term goals, stepping into new chapters of focusing on financial stability and focusing on your self-worth, most importantly. So I think this could really be, this new moon behind the scenes mentally could really be the beginning of cultivating something new over the coming months regarding your finances, creativity, and sort of supporting where you want to head over the next couple months regarding your goals, your social network, your finances, your self-worth. But again, this is in your 12th house, so it's quiet. It could be subtle or internal, more preparatory. Now, when we get to March 20th, right after this new moon, that's when Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node. And I think this is where some of you might start to feel the initial effects of that momentum returning. And with Mercury ruling your Gemini 3rd house and Virgo 6th house, this Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node for some of you could really help untangle the communication, the planning, the scheduling, the logistics, the work, the daily systems, the daily grind, so to speak. And I think this is really important because April is probably going to be very busy for all of us. But for Aries risings, April, you're going to have you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, and eventually a new moon all stacked up in your Aries 1st house of self, the physical body, how you take independent action. So again, I think this month, March, is really this pullback behind the scenes to maybe untangle things, see what you need to see. And April, with all of this piling up in your 1st house of the self, the physical body, how you take independent action, could really be a big launch for you. So right now in March, I think a lot of Aries risings, generally speaking, could really be sort of reorganizing your energy, reorganizing, the work themes, the health themes, your day-to-day lives behind the scenes, clearing the mental clutter, adjusting the habits, restructuring priorities for some of you so that when April hits, you're not scattered. You're really aligned to step into these new cycles regarding you, how you want to show up in the world, and how you want to take independent action towards what feels fulfilling, your career, your long-term goals, and most importantly, who you want to surround yourselves with and who supports those themes in your lives. Hi, Taurus risings. March, again, I think is a month of recalibration, potentially around your long-term vision, creative expression, maybe even a little bit of an evolving identity within those themes, and even career spaces as well for some of you. So let's start off with this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in your Virgo 5th house. Now I have a separate episode diving into just this eclipse, so definitely listen to that for more context if you haven't already. But for you Taurus risings, this eclipse really activates this 5th and 11th house axis here. So think of creativity versus community, personal joy versus your collective goals or aspirations, even romance and long-term vision, as well as any self-expression versus your personal or professional networks. So with Virgo, this full moon lunar eclipse in your Virgo 5th house, something could be even illuminated around, the creative output, romantic life, but also children, if applicable to you, or just genuinely what is bringing you joy in 2026. And for some of you, this might be about sort of turning inward or pulling back to sort of rediscover new things that bring you joy. Because the ruler of this eclipse in your Virgo 5th house is Mercury. And Mercury is retrograde in your Pisces 11th house. So I don't think that this eclipse is just about, children if applicable, personal expression, creativity, etc. I think it's also about sort of how those themes could also be interacting with your future plans, your collaborations, your sort of like your social ecosystem, whether it's personal or professional. And there may be sort of revisions taking place in this area around your personal or professional communities you're aligned with, sort of the goals that you've been working towards, maybe revising those goals to set new ones. Even for some of you, depending on the work that you do, sort of like the masses, the audience you are working for, you are creating for. And I think for some Taurus risings, this might be a time of reflection around, does your long-term vision or goal still reflect and align to who you are now? So again, I think this is a reflection period around maybe reassessing the direction of your aspirations. Do they authentically align with you, authentically align with your overall direction? Because we are always evolving, we are always changing. So moving on to, let's see, we got March 6th next. So March 6th, this is when Venus enters your Aries 12th house. So this can be important for Taurus risings because Venus rules your first house of self, your identity, your body, how you take independent action. And it also rules your Libra 6th house of daily work, routines, health. So as Venus moves into Aries, Venus is going to immediately apply to a conjunction with Neptune and Saturn here. I think this is really important because Saturn rules your 10th house of career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, as well as your Capricorn 9th house of growth, potential, travel, beliefs, your long-term philosophy, your knowledge. So yes, Venus is entering your Aries 12th house, but Venus is initiating a new cycle with Saturn regarding the area of career, growth and potential. Again, public life, travel, knowledge, etc. So this could really be merging Venus ruled areas as well as Saturn ruled areas. So Venus could be creating new stories, new cycles in the 12th house, behind the scenes, internally, involving you personally, your work, your daily structure, career path, reputation, long-term direction, and sort of worldview, beliefs. So this could really be merging all of those themes as Venus and Saturn rule those areas, and how Neptune could really be reshaping your definition of those areas, reshaping I think internally, mentally, behind the scenes for you, your definition of what you want long-term, what you want with career, growth and potential, how it supports you. It supports sort of your daily structure and routines. So again, this could be a restructuring period kicking off behind the scenes, where you could be internally or quietly sort of redefining your professional trajectory, your belief system. For some of you, like the legacy you want to build, the routines or habits that are going to support it. And this is, again, like it's in the 12th. So it's just behind the scenes. It's like wants to emerge, but it's still gestating, still kind of marinating, as I like to say. So bumping up to March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world, we have this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, long-term goals. So this could really be the reset, the new chapter, or planting new seeds after you've sort of been either gestating, reviewing, revising, sort of starting new things, thinking about new ways of approach behind the scenes, where this could be the reset around the long-term goals, the networks, the future direction, who you want to surround yourselves with. So this could be the time where clarity or things clicking into place are like just about there, just starting to kind of get to that point just before Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node, which I'll get to. So this could be the point, this new moon could be the point where you start to see maybe the course correction, or you start to see the more visible aspects of what you've been reviewing and revising. So this new moon also sextiles Uranus at 28 degrees in your first house of self. Now remember, the last new moon, which was an eclipse, in your 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, created tension with a square to Uranus, this Uranus in your first house of self. So back around the new moon eclipse in Aquarius in February, roughly around mid-February, a lot of you could have felt that friction, that tension, or the desire for action around your career, your public life, or what brings you fulfillment versus sort of your identity, how you want to take independent action, what's really in alignment to you. And that could have, for some of you, felt pressure, adjustment, taking action. This new moon on March 18th or 19th, this feels different because this new moon is making a friendlier aspect, a one that suggests opportunity to innovating or changing sort of how you take independent action, your appearance, your identity, how you want to move through the world. So after this revisionary period with Mercury that's now coming to a close, you might see how sort of like your evolving identity is aligning more naturally with your long-term goals and who you want to surround yourselves with. So some of you could sort of see this as like a mark of new beginning, or the potential for new beginnings to unfold over the coming months around professional direction, collaboration, really sort of redefining a vision for what you want to cultivate over the coming months. So this could feel less tense, less friction compared to last month regarding those themes. Now, once we get to, let's see, March 20th, for some of us, the next day after this new moon, we have Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node in your Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So again, Mercury rules your Gemini second house of income, resources, self-worth, your fifth house of creativity, joy, self-expression, children if applicable. So this could be a time of like financial plans, creative projects, personal expression, starting to sort of untangle. Mercury's still in Pisces, so this could be sort of where like clarity, decisions start to kind of take place, things really start to untangle. We're not completely out of the woods yet. Mercury is still in detriment, technically in fall in Pisces. So, but this is where things you could start to kind of like see the momentum, or things like the stage being set for a lot of momentum in April. So this, like I said, this could be where things start to kind of click into place and align for April, which could be very busy for you Taurus risings, regarding your 12th house, which is very interesting because come April, you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, and eventually a new moon all piling up in that 12th house of behind the scenes, subconscious thought patterns, lots of stuff. So this month in March, I think could be a time of revising the vision. And I think April could be a time where, yes, there's a lot of momentum, but for you Taurus risings compared to other people, I think it's about the momentum of working behind the scenes to build it, working behind the scenes to move towards it. So I think right now there could be this, recalibration or refining sort of your identity, your goals, your long-term direction that could be career related for some of you. And come April, you could be really executing and creating momentum regarding those themes, but more quietly, even strategically behind the scenes. Hi, Gemini risings. I think March could be a defining month for a lot of Gemini risings regarding your career direction, public visibility, even the inner restructuring that maybe needs to happen in order for that path to move forward with clarity. But more specifically, that path to move forward in a way that is aligned to you with the Mercury retrograde ruling your first house of self. Mercury rules that first house of self, as well as that Virgo fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So beginning on March 3rd, you'll have this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in that fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So this could also include renovations, redecorations, relocations. Again, I have a whole separate episode that goes a lot deeper into this eclipse. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. But for Gemini risings, generally speaking, this eclipse is definitely in that fourth house, but it is really activating, in my opinion, the 10th and the fourth house axis. So really the axis of home versus career, your private life versus your public life, your emotional foundation versus sort of the long-term legacy, or if career is not really a thing, what brings you fulfillment? Now with Virgo, this full moon eclipse in your Virgo fourth house, there definitely is a spotlight on your living situation, maybe your family dynamics, relationships, your roots, and maybe the structure that supports you internally and externally. But the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury, and Mercury will be retrograde in your Pisces 10th house. So I think this really makes the eclipse really personal for Gemini risings because it's in this 10th house, which is very visible in the world, but Mercury also rules your first house of self and the physical body, how you take independent action. So with the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury retrograde in your Pisces 10th house, this could be a time of revision around your career path, maybe your role in the world, your visibility, and how you're being perceived even. So it could be directly tied to what is also happening in your private life, your home, and your family relationships as well. And so some Gemini risings, you might be recognizing, where your current direction no longer reflects the internal reality that you feel, or vice versa. Some of you might see where home, personal life is out of balance with career, or vice versa. Or for some of you, generally speaking, you just might be really reimagining and trying to realign the trajectory of career projects, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So again, this Mercury retrograde, it's not a rare transit. So it's not final, but it's an opportunity for a review, a new perspective, and a time to see what needs to maybe change or realign for you in a way that supports you personally, but also supports the foundation you need in order to achieve these things. And especially setting it up for a very fiery forward momentum April that I will get to. Now, the next day I want to jump to is March 6th, when Venus enters your Aries 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So yes, Venus is in detriment in Aries, but this is really, I think Venus in Aries could just be overexerting, overextending, really trying to maybe redefine your connection to friends, groups, communities, even professional social networks, long-term goals. As you're really reviewing and revising a public area of your life, what brings you fulfillment, or career situations or career themes. Now, as Venus enters Aries, it will immediately start to apply to a conjunction with Neptune and Saturn, where it's going to be starting new cycles, new stories that are going to play out as Venus continues and moves on around your chart. So this could really be starting new cycles around your long-term goals, new collaborations, new ways of connecting with your audience or community, depending on what you do, and sort of the future that you're building towards. You might have some of you might have a little bit of a feisty attitude towards it this month, which might not be a bad thing. Venus in Aries, especially in a visible area of the chart, can sometimes help sort of allow you to kind of get more clear on what you really want. A Venus in Aries, what I love about it is I want what I want, and I'm not apologizing for it. And so this might help if that resonates, or that's a trouble area for you personally. But Venus rules, more specifically, it rules your Taurus 12th house and your Libra 5th house. So this could also be merging those 12th house themes of what's going on mentally for you, what's going on behind the scenes. Now, the 12th house is also hidden enemies. Now, this is, that could be a really intense word for a sort of maybe redefining your collaborations or redefining who you connect with in your social network after sort of getting clear with, who's an alliance to you. So this could be a time where some of you get clear on who's a good alliance, who's a good partnership or collaboration for you, depending on what you do with your work. And that just might be something that Venus is merging in this time. With Venus ruling the 12th, a lot of you could also be maybe thinking about sort of what are the subconscious thought patterns? What are the things going on behind the scenes that affect your long-term goals, how you certain people you connect with, and just getting clear on that as you're also reviewing and revising with this Mercury. So with Venus also ruling your 5th house, you could also be integrating more joy, more creativity, more self-expression regarding your personal or professional social network, your long-term goals, as that is creating a new cycle with Saturn. Now, with Venus applying to the conjunction with Neptune and Saturn, we also have to consider the areas that Saturn rules in your chart. So Saturn rules your Capricorn 8th house and your Aquarius 9th house. So this is really important because the restructuring or the new cycle to build, restructure, move towards, it could really involve your overall growth and potential, your knowledge, travel, really your long-term path. And this could also be integrating money, investments, assets, long-term financial management, resources, energetic exchanges within your social network, personal or professional. Sort of like the level of depth and commitment to regarding your personal and professional social network. Again, who do you need to align yourselves to that align to this restructuring or redefining of sort of commitments or long-term goals that you want to commit yourselves to. So a lot of you could be really redefining the future you want, the goals, the dreams, the aspirations that are sustainable long-term, and how to integrate your self-expression within that, how to integrate more of what you want regarding joy, as well as sort of what's been going on for you behind the scenes that could be coming to light around this time. That's all could kind of play a part in how you sort of initiate a new chapter or new cycle regarding your growth and potential, what resources are available to you, and how you are integrating that self-expression, social networks, long-term goals, etc. So the next date I want to jump to is March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world, depending on the time zone. But March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are, there will be a new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces 10th house of career, visibility, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So some of you could see the beginning of a reset for your career, your visibility, or your long-term direction. And this new moon happens just before Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node in that 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So this could be sort of a major moment of potential realignment, or sort of like the initial sprinkles of it that will transpire, I think, more, or there'll be more momentum around it getting into April. So this new moon at 28 degrees in your 10th house, yes, new beginning, new chapter regarding career, projects, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. But this new moon is sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus 12th house. So I want you to think back to last month's new moon eclipse at 29 degrees in Aquarius that squared that Uranus. So back around mid-February, you were experiencing an eclipse, a new moon eclipse that squared that could have heightened friction, tension, the need to take action between growth and potential themes, knowledge, truth, belief. That could have been career related for some of you, and sort of what's been going on mentally. What are, behind the scenes. That could have brought some tension last month regarding sort of the path maybe some of you thought you were on, and what was changing behind the scenes. Or for some of you, it could have been like your own deep internal changes around the perspectives regarding your belief, your truth, your growth and potential, your knowledge. Again, that could be career related for some of you. So some of you, it could have been tense. Like there could have been a lot of action. There could have been a lot of things playing out behind the scenes. Now this new moon on March 18th or 19th at 28 degrees in Pisces, now it's sextile to Uranus. That's a friendlier aspect. That's a more opportunistic aspect, that I think there will be less friction. So it's interesting how there was a square last month to that Uranus, and now there's a sextile to Uranus with the moon cycles. And this new moon is, I think, the opportunity that comes after the revision, after the untangling that some of you have been doing or witnessing thus far. So some of you may now kind of feel or start to see the opportunity to initiate a new public direction, new career projects, or new ways of approaching them. That could also reflect maybe an inner transformation or sort of innovation or sudden changes that were going on behind the scenes for some of you. Now on March 20th, I want to jump to March 20th to finish off the month. So very shortly after that new moon takes place in that 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node. And I think Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node, I think as a Gemini rising, you could feel this more because Mercury rules your physical body, yourself, how you take independent action. So I think this is where maybe something aligns, maybe something clicks into place finally, or you can start seeing, you know, the writing on the wall. You can start seeing the thing kind of start to click into place. Now again, Mercury rules your first house of self and your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So this could start to bring the initial effects of clarity or alignment to maybe how you want to take action, your identity, your personal direction, the home and emotional foundations. For some of you, it could be more superficial stuff on the foundation front, like renovations, redecorations, just kind of creating a foundation that really supports you, but also supports your career, what brings you fulfillment. And so I think this could be the time where maybe some of you start to feel that forward momentum or seeing it start to unfold. Maybe decisions become a bit clearer. Mercury's still in Pisces, still in detriment, still in fall. Although it's direct and conjunct the North Node. So things could become clear, but not totally clear. This is sort of, we still need some time to kind of move forward and get things going. But I think this is where it sort of kicks into gear. And the energy can start to return for a lot of you. And this matters because April becomes very active for Gemini risings, especially in your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So once you get into April, you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and a new moon eventually, all stacked up in this 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals. So Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node in this 10th house of career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, I think could be sort of things clicking into place, or the stage is being set for the future to start moving quickly once you get into April, especially around potential collaborations, plans, long-term goals. So again, I think March is sort of that recalibration, that revisionary period of maybe realignment between sort of your inner world or foundation and the public life or career, so that when April arrives, you're not just moving forward, you're really moving forward with clarity, direction, and a future that actually reflects and aligns to who you're becoming and the overall direction you want regarding career, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. Hi, Cancer risings. March looks like a month that has a lot of potential to sort of reshape your beliefs, your direction. Maybe for some of you, sort of reshape sort of the overall direction around partnerships or your approach to partnerships, and sort of even the future you're building. But it does this, I think, through, again, like I mentioned in the intro, like more of a review, a realignment, and even deep contemplation or perspective. So let's start off on March 3rd, where we have this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in your third house. Now, I do have a separate episode that goes a lot deeper into this eclipse, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. But for you, this eclipse is really highlighting and activating your third and your ninth house, right? In the chart, we have the sun and the moon in opposition. So it's really highlighting and illuminating your third and ninth house axis. So think generally, your daily mindset versus the higher vision, exchanging information versus the higher knowledge. Sort of these short-term movements, right? Transportation, short distance travel, your neighborhood, your community, versus sort of the overall long-term direction or long-term movement, like long distance travel. And, even for some of you, sort of the communication versus belief systems. But I think for a lot of Cancer risings, especially with Saturn's final ingress into this 10th house of career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, I think a lot of Cancer risings, you guys might be contemplating and reviewing and revising sort of the overall growth and potential you really want, you desire, you need to build what feels more fulfilling to you. That could be career related. Now, with this full moon lunar eclipse really highlighting your Virgo third house, there could just be this illumination around your thinking patterns, your conversations, your learning environment, your schedule, the way you process information. If you work in communication fields, technology, this could really be highlighting those types of themes too. So it could be personal or professional, depending on what you do for work or what you find fulfilling in the world. But the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury. And Mercury will be retrograde in Pisces, where it is in detriment technically in fall as well. So there could be this element of overexertion, overextending yourself in this area. And this is, I think, more than just an eclipse in your third. The ruler of the eclipse, Mercury, being retrograde in that Pisces ninth house, I think it's bigger than just, a shift in your day-to-day life or what's going on in your everyday immediate environment. I think this could be also including sort of, for some of you, this revision of your beliefs, your worldview, your long-term path, those growth and potential themes that some of you might really be reviewing and revising in order to build something that maybe feels more fulfilling to you long-term. Some of you might be really gearing up to focus on career projects, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. And this can really help, I think, kind of align or bring clarity or have you take different perspectives on these themes in order to kind of step into that Saturn energy in your Aries 10th house. So again, some of you might be really rethinking with this Mercury retrograde throughout a lot of March, the overall direction you are moving towards. Some of you, it could be educational plans, teaching, publishing, how you share your voice, depending on what you do. And for some of you, it could be spiritual or sort of like your philosophy, your philosophical framework. And because Mercury is retrograde, we have Mercury retrogrades. They're not, they happen quite often. So this isn't permanent. This isn't final. This is just a window of opportunity to sort of gain a new perspective, reflect on these themes and see where sort of your mindset is, your long-term vision. What is no longer aligned? What could be recalibrated so it fully supports and aligns to what you want to build moving forward? Now, the next day I want to jump to is March 6th. So yeah, I have March 6th. So March 6th is when Venus enters your Aries 10th house of career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. Now, by essential dignity, Venus is in detriment when it's in Aries. So some of you might be overexerting or putting a lot of energy or emphasis on what you want regarding what feels more fulfilling to you, career, business, public recognition themes, but in a way where you might also be heavily emphasizing or focus on your social network, your long-term goals, also sort of your living situation, home, foundational things that support where you want to move forward in 2026. So with Venus entering your Aries 10th house, this generally can help activate, the career, the visibility, reputation, public roles. But like I mentioned, Venus rules this Taurus 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals, as well as your Libra 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So yes, Venus is entering a career or very visible area of your chart, but Venus is also connecting home and family, emotional foundations, future goals, your social network, your support systems with your career path, public direction, or what you find fulfilling if career is not a theme for you at this time. So as Venus enters Aries, Venus is going to immediately apply to a conjunction with Neptune and Saturn here in this 10th house. So Venus is starting to create new cycles and stories that are going to play out as Venus continues moving around your chart over the next roughly 18 months or so. And Venus is creating a new story to unfold with Neptune in this conjunction, and Venus is also creating a new story to unfold with Saturn. So with Venus applying to a conjunction with Saturn, Saturn rules your Capricorn 7th house of partnership and your 8th house of resources, long-term finances, transformational work, big transformational decisions. So I think for a lot of Cancer risings, this could be a very significant time for a lot of you where some of you could be setting new cycles, new stories, new goals, new ways of committing or restructuring happening with partnerships, personal or professional, commitments, how you commit, shared resources, energetic exchange with this Venus Saturn conjunction for Cancer risings, long-term collaborations, and really sort of the direction, the future that some of you are building with others. So Neptune is there to, yes, create a new cycle or story to unfold with Venus and Neptune forming this conjunction. But I think Neptune is here to sort of help reshape it, surrender things that need to be let go, dissolve things that need to be let go, sort of shift those boundaries around to accommodate what you really love and value regarding the partnerships and connections you really desire and you need professionally, personally, as well as sort of how you create mutual empowerment with the work that you do with others. So I think for some Cancer risings, you could be really redefining what partnership looks like, redefining even sort of sustainable partnership and what that looks like. So not just romantically, but professionally and financially as well, with Saturn ruling this 8th house, tying in some financial themes for some of you. So a lot of you could be really initiating new stories and cycles to unfold around this time that could really be reshaping not only your career, but like how you connect with others that could be impacting that area as well. And so the next day I want to jump to is March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are. in the world, what time zone you're in. But on March, I have 18th, I'm Eastern Standard Time, where we have this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces ninth house. So this could be a time where some of you are really stepping into a reset around a long-term direction, a new goal, a new chapter, a new opportunity around growth and potential themes that could include travel, publishing, teaching, or career themes for some of you, depending on your natal chart. And this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces ninth house happens pretty much just before Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node in this Pisces ninth house. So I think this is quite significant because this feels almost like an opportunity for realignment that could be setting the stage for April's momentum and forward movement. So I think this is where maybe clarity or the ability for a fog to lift, if that resonates, or just being able to see sort of the new chapter that could be taking place for a lot of you, that could be really setting the stage for things to launch in your career, things that feel more fulfilling to you, career projects, public recognition. So this new moon with Mercury ready to station direct conjunct the North Node could be increasing sort of the overall vision, things sort of gearing up to click into place around where you're going, what you believe in, what you're committing to long term. And this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces ninth house sextiles Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus 11th house of social network and long-term goals. So think back to last month's, so February 2026, around that new moon eclipse in Aquarius, mid-February, where that new moon was square Uranus. So at this juncture, when we get to March 18th or 19th, we will be a month ahead from that new moon eclipse that took place at 29 degrees in your Aquarius 8th house that was square Uranus. So that created tension for some of you. That created the need to take action between maybe finances, shared resources, making transformational decisions, how you create mutual empowerment with others, and taking action on any last minute innovation to how that impacted your long-term goals, who you want to surround yourselves with. So there could have been sort of shared resources, financial themes that could have been playing a part in sort of maybe taking action or doing some change to the long-term goals and who you surround yourselves with. So like I said, back mid-February, there was the opportunity for some tension, some need to take action between that. Now, the next new moon on March 18th or 19th will sextile Uranus. So that is a friendlier aspect. It's more of an opportunistic aspect. So where last month may have gotten you to feel a little stress, feel a little tension, take a little action around this area, now this could be the moment where some of you maybe start to see an opportunity open up or start to see things in a different light that feels maybe a little lighter, less heavier than an eclipse for some of you between that 8th and the 11th. So where last month there may have been some action, adjustment, pressure, again, this new moon now on March 18th is, I think, the opportunity that comes after that revision, after that tension, after that action. And so some of you may be really beginning to initiate a new chapter around sort of your long-term path, your growth and potential, that is hopefully supported by the right people, the right collaborations, and a clearer vision for the future, where Uranus is sort of tying in your social network, and Saturn this month is tying in the partnership themes with that. Then I want to close out the month on March 20th. So for some of you, pretty much the next day, after this new moon, Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node at 8 degrees in your Pisces 9th house. So this is where on March 20th, I think some of you could start to see the momentum, maybe not feel it or see it actually externally happening. Maybe some of you will, but Mercury is still in Pisces. So there's still that, element of essential dignity where it is in detriment, essentially in fall as well. So, this is where I think you can kind of see it click into place and see maybe the momentum that's coming, or the stage being set for what is really going to transpire in April. So again, Mercury rules your 3rd house and your Gemini 12th house. So this could also sort of be merging clarity, alignment, overall direction around your plans and communication, mental focus. Maybe for some of you, even behind the scenes work you've been processing. And again, this is very important because April becomes very active for you in your Aries 10th house of career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So as you're sort of closing out March, a lot of you could be gearing up for a lot of new stories, a lot initiating, where in April you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and eventually a new moon here in this 10th house of career, visibility, public role. So I really think for Cancer risings, generally speaking, March is that recalibration of your direction, your knowledge, your belief systems, where you want to go. So that when April arrives, it's sort of, you're not just kicking off and really moving forward. You're moving forward with the clarity, the aligned partnerships, and really, I think for some of you, this long-term vision that actually reflects where you want to go in 2026. Hi, Leo risings. March could be a deeply transformational month regarding relationships to resources, intimacy, collaboration, long-term direction. And I think for a lot of Leo risings, a lot of this could be happening sort of behind the scenes or really beneath the surface before things become a lot more visible or begin to move forward in April. But let's just begin on March 3rd, where we have this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in that Virgo 2nd house of earned income, self-worth. And I do have a separate episode where I go a lot deeper into just this eclipse. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. But for you, Leo risings, this eclipse is really activating your 2nd and 8th house axis. So this is a financial axis, but it also includes really sort of transformational work, transformational decisions, self-worth. So for some of you, you could be seeing sort of things being highlighted around your personal income versus your shared resources or long-term income, really sort of self-reliance versus mutual empowerment in partnerships. Self-worth versus energetic exchange with other people and other resources. So for some of you, whether you're single or paired up, it could be business partnerships, business connections, or for some of you, it could be really illuminating how you want to change, how you connect with others. And with this full moon lunar eclipse in this Virgo 2nd house, there could really be this illumination around your finances, your skills, your values, your sense of stability around this time. But the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury, and Mercury will be retrograde in your Pisces 8th house. So I don't think this is just about money. I think this is a deep revision around financial entanglements, shared assets, energetic exchanges, and sort of the balance of give and take between personal and or professional partnerships. Because Mercury rules your Gemini 11th house of your social network, your friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So again, I don't think this is just about money in and of itself. I think this is about where you want to take things long-term. Where do you see yourselves long-term? Who are those people within your social network that are alliances versus people that don't really support that long-term vision you have for yourself? So some of you might be deeply revising where your resources, whether it's financial, emotional, or energetic, are being merged or organized long term that are sustainable to you. So some of you might actually be kind of seeing the details of where things haven't been sustainable for you long term, just because Mercury does rule this second house of earned income, but it rules this 11th house of long-term goals, dreams, aspirations. So some of you could be really reviewing and revising sort of resources that it's not just money, but energetic resources, mutual resources, energetic resources that impact your ability to align your resources long-term to support those long-term goals. Now, because Mercury is retrograde and in detriment and technically in fall as well, there could be this, some of you might be feeling overextended or overexerting yourselves focusing on this. So just be aware of that energy if you're prone to that, especially if Mercury is direct in your natal chart. So I think this could really help bring awareness and perspective on maybe what needs to shift, perspective around giving and receiving, sharing, what's working, what's not, maybe for some of you. Again, take what resonates, leave the rest. The next day I want to jump to is, March 6th. So jumping to March 6th, we have Venus entering your Aries 9th house. So Venus is starting to activate your 9th house. So think sort of growth and potential, maybe long-term direction, beliefs, your expansion. For some of you, if it resonates, teaching, publishing, traveling, sort of maybe the paths that are opening for you. And with Venus ruling your 10th house of career and public recognition, this could definitely have career, public recognition, what feels fulfilling to you regarding what is opening up to you or the long-term direction you want to take. And so Venus rules, yes, this 10th house of career and public recognition, but it also rules your Libra 3rd house of communication. So Venus entering your Aries 9th house could really be merging and connecting your career, public role, your voice, your message, your communication with the overall growth and potential or long-term vision you have for yourselves that could be really building around this time as you're reviewing and revising things financially or energetically. So Venus, when it enters your Aries 9th house, will immediately apply to conjunctions with Neptune and Saturn here. So creating new cycles, new stories to unfold. But with Venus applying to a conjunction with Saturn, and Saturn ruling your Aquarius 7th house of partnership and your Capricorn 6th house of work, routine, health, this could bring new cycles and new stories to unfold, where there could be a restructuring happening around maybe your working relationships, your daily work environment, maybe relationships with coworkers, or certain sort of like new structures and new realities starting to take place around personal and or professional partnerships that impact either career, growth and potential, what feels fulfilling to you, etc. Where Neptune in the mix of this, I think, could be sort of shifting things, surrendering things, dissolving in order for that to take place. So I think for a lot of Leo risings around this time, there could be sort of this, the aligning to a long-term path. But I think for a lot of Leo risings, given the transits off the top of my head in the past couple of years, I think a lot of Leo risings could be aligning to a long-term path, but getting very clear on the right people, the right agreements, what is truly mutually empowering, and the right daily structures and routines that are going to support that long-term path or long-term vision. The next date I want to jump to is March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world, what time zone you're in. I'm Eastern Standard Time, so I'm going to be on March 18th, where we have this new moon on March 18th at 28 degrees in your Pisces 8th house. And so this could be the beginning of a powerful reset to unfold over the coming months regarding shared resources, intimacy, trust, transformation, financial themes, where this new moon is happening just before Mercury is stationing direct conjunct the North Node in that Pisces 8th house. So this could be the moment where maybe you can sort of see the clarity. You may not see it externally yet. You may not feel it in its totality, but I think a lot of you might start to feel things clicking into place or understanding sort of the right next step with this new moon that's going to kind of carry you through into April, where so much is initiating in this Aries 9th house, which I'll get to. But this new moon is I think an opportunity to sort of be able to see moments of clarity or new perspectives or understandings, hopefully starting to align. Maybe not unfold yet. Mercury is still in Pisces, but starting to align regarding financial agreements, energetic exchanges, sort of even, deeper commitments to those long-term goals, the social networks that align to those long-term goals and your overall success. Now, this new moon at 28 degrees is sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus 10th house of career, business, public recognition. But I want you to first think back to mid-February, roughly, where there was that new moon eclipse in your Aquarius 7th house that squared Uranus in your 10th house of career, or what brings you fulfillment. That could have been a time of tension for a lot of you, or it could have been highlighting a lot of friction and the need to take action between partnerships, agreements, career path, public direction, what feels fulfilling to you. And a lot of you could have felt sort of some level of pressure or action and adjustment needed with that. Now, this new moon at 28 degrees sextiles. It doesn't square like the last new moon. It sextiles this Uranus in your 10th house of career, or what brings you fulfillment. So this is sort of a friendlier aspect. This is more of an opportunistic aspect where maybe things are starting to click into place here with Mercury gearing up to station direct conjunct the North Node, new moon in this 8th house. Maybe you've had some time to review, to revise, setting new cycles and stories to unfold around restructuring your overall career path, what you want to build long term, overall growth and potential. And now there's some sort of opportunity taking place that for some of you could be financially related regarding career as well, or maybe partnership related as well, if that resonates around this time. So either way, you might start to initiate a new chapter in your career or public reputation, or what brings you fulfillment, that is hopefully starting to be supported by healthier agreements, clear energetic exchanges, sort of a deeper understanding of your values as well. That could be really setting the stage for when Mercury stations direct and things start to really take this forward momentum into April. So moving on to March 20th, we have Mercury stationing direct conjunct or on top of the North Node in your Pisces 8th house. So this is where, again, some of you could really start to see a more clear picture manifest or start to take form. And Mercury rules your 2nd house of earned income, your Gemini 11th house of long-term goals, friends, groups, communities. So this could really start to form more clarity or the forward movement around your finances, income, long-term goals, networks, collaborations. So hopefully, again, it might take some time to actually see the externalization of that forward momentum. But I think at a minimum, this is where a lot of Leo risings internally could at least have that inner alignment, that inner knowing of that next step that's going to bring you there. So plans could begin to move forward, financial decisions could become a lot clearer, and you could start to see a more tangible vision unfold around those themes. So this is really important because once we get to April, you're going to have a very active Aries 9th house, where in April, there could be a lot of expansion, visibility, growth, and movement that could definitely be career related for a lot of you, where you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and eventually a new moon all piled up here in this 9th house of growth and potential. Again, could be career related for a lot of you around this time. So March, I think, is that recalibration of resources, agreements, what really feels mutually empowering for some of you if partnership is a strong theme around this time. So that when April arrives and you have so much happening in this Aries 9th house, you're not just expanding and initiating new chapters and new cycles. You're expanding with the alignment, the support, and I think with Saturn, the structure that's actually going to sustain the next level that I think a lot of Leo risings are looking to move towards in 2026. Hi, Virgo risings. It looks like March could be a very defining or memorable month for a lot of Virgo risings, because we're really kicking off the beginning of March with a full moon lunar eclipse in your 1st house of self, physical body, how you take independent action. So on March 3rd, you will have this full moon lunar eclipse highlighting, illuminating your Virgo 1st house of self around 12 degrees. But for you, this really activates the 1st and 7th house axis with the sun and the moon in opposition when we're looking at the chart. And so for you, this really is the axis of the self versus the other. So you versus sort of your role in relationships, your identity, in relationships, your personal direction, your commitments, how you show up, and who you are showing up for. So for some of you, this could be more personal, but for some of you, this could be professional partnerships. So again, this could be deeply personal to you as a Virgo rising with this eclipse happening in your first house of the self. So your chart ruler, as well as the ruler of this full moon eclipse in your first house of self, is Mercury. And Mercury will be retrograde in your Pisces 7th house of personal and or professional partnership. Again, the others in your lives. So this could be a general revision around relationship dynamics, whether they're personal or professional. So some of you could be seeing sort of who you are within certain partnerships. Some of you could be working on something or untangling something within a long-term partnership. And some of you could be really reviewing and revising or seeing more clearly like what you've outgrown, where a relationship structure itself is changing, or how you want to sort of redefine or align to attracting the connections that you do want moving forward, whether they're personal or professional. And so overall, this could be a time of reflection that could bring a lot of awareness that provides some Virgo risings to sort of redefine the balance between sort of you versus your long-term partnerships or the partnerships you desire, or you versus, your commitments. The next day I want to jump to is, March 6th. So March 6th, we have Venus entering your Aries 8th house. So this could really start to create new cycles and stories to unfold regarding shared resources, financial agreements, intimacy, trust, mutual empowerment, energetic exchanges. And with Venus entering your Aries 8th house, again, it's going to immediately apply to Neptune and Saturn, maybe creating new cycles around those themes that I just listed. But Venus rules your second house of earned income and your Taurus 9th house of growth and potential, which could be career related. So this could really be connecting and merging something financially, financial agreements, shared resources, exchanges, mutual empowerment that could also have sort of impacts or be sort of connecting your own individual income and personal resources, your value, your self-worth, your long-term direction, your overall knowledge, growth, and potential regarding sort of the financial agreements, the intimacy and trust, transformation, exchanges, mutual empowerment that could be coming up. For some of you, again, take what resonates, leave the rest. So as Venus moves through Aries, again, applying to that conjunction with Neptune and Saturn, but specifically focusing on Saturn here, Saturn rules your 5th house and your 6th house. So this is significant because a lot of you regarding financial themes, transformation, shared resources, intimacy, trust, exchanges. This could be sort of a time where those themes are on the table, but there's some restructuring happening around the way you work and your daily life, including coworkers. Some of you, this could be sort of new stories or sort of a restructuring regarding childcare, child planning, children, if applicable to you. And some of you, it could just be a more general sort of balance between your joy versus your long-term responsibilities. And the sustainability, I think, of the sustainability and the structure of your long-term financial future, energetic exchanges, what feels mutually empowering for you, where Neptune in the mix of this could be shifting those boundaries or dissolving what no longer is necessary in order to establish a more valuable, sustainable, long-term sustainable situation regarding your health, your overall vitality, the work that you want to do, what feels more joyful for you. That could really be kind of happening in the financial arena or transformational decision or work arena. The next date I want to jump to is March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Eastern Standard Time Zone, so I'm going to be on March 18th, where this new moon at 28 degrees will take place in your Pisces 7th house of personal and or professional partnerships. So this could be the beginning where some of you could start to see the beginning of something really unfolding over the coming months regarding a reset in your relationship sector of your chart and thus life. So again, this could be personal or professional. And this new moon happens just before Mercury is about to station direct conjunct the North Node in this partnership area of your chart. So this could be sort of the realignment moment for some of you. And this new moon at 28 degrees will sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus 9th house. But before I get into that, I want you to think back to last month's new moon eclipse in Aquarius that took place in the area of health, work, and routines that squared that Uranus. That could have been highlighting some friction, some tension, the need to take action between health, work, routines, and overall growth and potential. That could have been career related for some of you. And again, it could have just been general tension or action being taken around daily work, responsibilities, routines, health, long-term direction, desire for expansion, where there was some tension. There was maybe even some pressure for some of you, where this new moon, the next new moon, comes along on March 18th and sextiles this Uranus. That's a more opportunistic, friendlier, generally speaking, less tense aspect with a new moon and Uranus. So this is where some of you may really start to see the beginning or the initiation of a new chapter regarding how you connect with others personally or professionally. Maybe things playing out within a long-term partnership, including marriage. Either way, a lot of you could be seeing that initiation of the new chapter regarding those personal or professional relationship themes that supports your growth, your future path, even for some of you, sort of like your evolving growth and potential. So this could mark the beginning of new agreements within personal and professional partnerships that could really align or unfold over the next couple months, that maybe aligns a little bit more with who you are now and where you want to go long term. That again could be career related for some of you. And then we're going to jump to March 20th to close out the month, when Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node in your 7th house of personal and or professional partnership. Now, this is significant for you Virgo risings because Mercury rules your 1st house of self. So it's sort of like the ruler of your physical body. How you take independent action is clicking into place with the North Node, overall direction. Some of you, where you want to move towards, where you want to align yourselves to. And so this could be where you start to see the first step of forward momentum. And again, Mercury rules your first house of self, but it also rules your Gemini 10th house of career, business, public recognition, what feels fulfilling to you. So this could start to click into place and create the beginnings of movement and clarity around your personal direction, your visibility, your career path, what feels fulfilling to you, where you could see it sort of, in your alliances, your personal and professional partnerships, maybe playing a part in that. So hopefully this is where decisions can start to become more clear. Maybe roles become more defined, or just generally sort of your next step that is more aligned to you, your career, what feels more fulfilling to you, starts to make a little bit more sense after some revisionary period. And I think this matters. This is sort of a big deal for some of you because April becomes a very active month for you in this Aries 8th house. So whatever is sort of setting the stage that is being set, whatever is clicking into place, whatever next steps are becoming more clear to you, Virgo risings, this could really be setting the stage for April's very active situation in this Aries 8th house, where this could start to move the momentum and really initiate things regarding shared resources, investments, taxes, inheritance, debt, mortgages, loans, investments, assets, partners' resources, really any of those long-term financial themes that could be really having a lot of forward momentum in April, where there could even be sort of deep commitments, transformation, mutual empowerment playing out after this month in March, where there could have been sort of this revisionary period, but it seems like a potential to sort of reset for a lot of you, like reset your needs versus the needs of others, reset personal and or professional partnership themes, so that when April arrives and you have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and eventually a new moon in this Aries 8th house, you're not just merging forward, you're doing it with clarity, aligned agreements, and hopefully a much stronger sense of self and the balance between your needs versus the needs of others moving forward. Hi, Libra risings. March could be a month of internally revising or recalibrating, even in ways where sort of seeing how the internal reshapes or redefines your daily life, your energy, healing, and even what is going on in personal or professional partnerships. So starting off on March 3rd, we have this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in that Virgo 12th house. Now the 12th house is subconscious thought patterns, dreams. So definitely pay attention to what is going on for you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or sort of your need for solitude. Definitely pay attention to your dreams around this time. But the 12th house is also hidden enemies. So sort of maybe some of you are starting to see, where those people, places, and things. Again, hidden enemies, what I've learned in the past couple of years, hidden enemies are not always people. So being able to see sort of what is sabotaging you, what is affecting you that maybe some of you haven't been able to see. Either way, this full moon lunar eclipse at 12 degrees in that 12th house is really highlighting this 12th and 6th house axis, right? In the chart, we have the sun and the moon in opposition to each other. So really highlighting this axis of work versus rest or solitude, health versus, healing, productivity versus sort of surrendering and taking time alone. and sort of the daily grind versus the time you need to process and digest things mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and sort of just like your daily grind, your daily systems and routines versus your unconscious patterns, right? How your mental health affects your physical health, how your physical health affects your mental health, and how that also impacts sort of your overall vitality, the work that you do, your interactions with others. So with this full moon lunar eclipse in your Virgo 12th house, something could really be illuminated regarding your mental health, your mind, your inner world, your subconscious thought patterns, where some of you could be seeing sort of like becoming more aware of burnout or depletion. Some of you could be, again, recognizing those subconscious habits or hidden enemies, which could be people, places, or things, where you're seeing how it's affecting your physical health. And for some of you, you could be really seeing something clearly that needs to end, be released, or be healed. So the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury, and Mercury will be retrograde, in detriment, also technically in fall, in your Pisces 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So you could be heavily reviewing and revising going into March your daily life, your routines, workload, habits, really like your relationship to your time and energy. And so some of you might be feeling like you don't want to necessarily push forward. You want to sort of recognize your health and or work routines and what is maybe unsustainable for you versus what is sustainable for you. So some of you might be reviewing and revising to sort of redesign your approach to your work and or your health. Now, this is a Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrogrades happen all the time. So, this isn't permanent. This is just sort of like bringing awareness to your work and or health routines, maybe even relationships with coworkers, and seeing how it sort of impacts what's going on for you behind the scenes, which could be mental, spiritual, emotional, etc. So, moving on to March 6th is the next date I want to touch on, because that's when Venus enters your Aries 7th house of personal and or professional partnerships for you. And this is important for you, Libra Risings, because Venus rules your first house of the self, the physical body, how you take independent action. And so Venus will be in detriment in Aries. So some of you might feel like you could be overextending or overexerting yourselves, focusing on your connections with others, focusing on something regarding personal and or professional partnerships. But I think more importantly, in my opinion, with Venus entering your Aries 7th house, Venus will immediately apply to conjunctions with Neptune and Saturn here, creating new cycles, new stories to unfold. And so I think this could be gearing up to really start new relational cycles for you, where with Venus ruling your first house, but also your Taurus 8th house, you could be sort of creating new relational cycles to your connections with others, but also your identity, your personal direction, shared resources, intimacy, energetic exchange. Now, some of you who are partnered up, whether it's long-term business partnerships or long-term personal partnerships, you could be sort of creating new relational cycles to how you create mutual empowerment, whether that's emotional, energetically, or this could be creating new relational cycles within those partnerships that could have very strong financial themes. And so as Venus moves through Aries, again, applying to Saturn and Neptune, Saturn rules your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, as well as your Aquarius 5th house of joy, creativity, self-expression, or children, if applicable to you. So a lot of you could be sort of creating new relational cycles to your long-term finances, shared resources, mutual empowerment, transformation. A lot of you could also be seeing it play out regarding home, family, property, real estate themes, as well as, maybe your children are in the mix if that's applicable, or sort of trying to redefine new relational cycles that are also integrating joy, your self-expression and creativity. So again, there could be some restructuring happening for some of you around relationship dynamics, emotional foundations, home and family patterns, creative expression, what really brings you joy. And Neptune in the mix of this, I think, is helping sort of surrender or dissolve certain boundaries, structures, and systems that maybe need to be released or surrendered to step into these new cycles and these new stories regarding those themes that I mentioned. So I think some of you could also be redefining what sustainable partnership looks like. So if you're single or you're sort of trying to figure out, partnership, marriage, those long-term partnership themes, even professional partnerships as well, just sort of redefining, your boundaries and what you really want and what feels more self-expressive or more joyful for you and what supports you more foundationally within those long-term personal and or professional partnerships that is truly sustainable and aligns with your personal identity and your deeper emotional needs or foundational needs. So moving on to March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world, I'm Eastern Standard Time Zone. So I'm on March 18th, if you are listening and not watching. So March 18th, we have this new moon at 20 degrees in your Pisces 6th house. So this could be a reset around daily life, routines, health, work. So again, resetting routines, work environment, health, time management, maybe energetic output as you've been reviewing and revising for some time in this area. And this new moon, which could be sort of a reset in the health, work, coworkers, routine area of your chart and thus life, happens as Mercury is gearing up to station direct with the North Node in this 6th house of daily work and or health routines. So this could start to feel, for some of you, not entirely, but this could feel like the beginning of clarity returning around maybe how you structure your days, what you're committing your energy to, the systems that are going to support your well-being, the work that you want to do. And this new moon is also sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus 8th house. So before I get to that, I want you to think back to the last new moon that took place in your Aquarius 5th house. That squared Uranus. So the last new moon squared Uranus. That could have highlighted some friction, some tension, the need to take action between your 5th house and your 8th house. Now that could have been financial themes regarding, what brings you joy, where you want to invest regarding creative projects, self-expression, again, whatever your heart's desire is. Some of you, it could have been with your children, if applicable to you, or some of you might have been taking action regarding something with your children and sort of transformational decisions, transformational work, financial themes, investing something in them, etc. There's a lot of potential between these two houses. Either way, think back to what was playing out roughly around maybe mid-February, roughly, for a lot of you, and how this new moon on March 18th is now sextile that Uranus in your Taurus 8th house. So the sextile is more, it's a friendlier aspect, generally speaking, but it is an opportunistic aspect. So where there might have been some tension, some friction, some need to take action to create tangible change, roughly, mid-February, give or take, it's eclipse season. So it could have been earlier in February, later in February, regardless. Now you could see sort of the opportunity take shape, where this new moon, I think, is the opportunity that comes after that revision, where now maybe you're seeing the chance to sort of build new routines, daily systems, maybe support healthier exchanges financially, emotionally, and energetically. At this point, compared to last month, where some of you might have been taking action or creating a lot of change in your life regarding a personal situation. So where I want to end the month is on March 20th, when Mercury stations direct with the North Node in your Pisces 6th house of daily work and or health routines. This is when things could start to, you could feel like things start to align. Maybe things start to click into place. Mercury still is in Pisces, so this might take some time to really gain momentum, which I think will really start to happen in April. But I think at this point, things might become a little bit more aligned and clear, or you might see the next step towards the right direction. Where Mercury rules your Virgo 12th house and your Gemini 9th house. So this can really bring some alignment or the ability to see that forward momentum coming regarding sort of like your mental and spiritual state, maybe your long-term direction, plans for travel, education, teaching, growth and potential, which could be career related for some of you. But I think this could also be helpful in aligning sort of mental and physical well-being if that resonates around this time. Whatever it is, this really matters because April becomes very active for you, Libra Risings, regarding your Aries 7th house. So whatever is aligning or you're gaining clarity on in March, it could be setting the stage for some serious momentum, new cycles, a lot of potent energy initiating in your Aries 7th house of partnerships. This could also include sort of agreements taking shape, relationship dynamics becoming more defined as you're getting into April. So I think March is, I think, about sort of like maybe rest, recharging, healing maybe your energy, redesigning your daily life so that when April arrives and you have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and eventually a new moon in this area, you're not just meeting others. I think a lot of Libra risings, you could be untangling things this month to not only support your energy, your health, your work, your routines, but also step into an April where you're not just meeting others, you're sort of meeting them from that place of alignment, clarity, strength, and being able to balance sort of your needs versus the needs of others or the connections you really want to make that are in that grand picture that could be playing out for a lot of you regarding these themes in 2026. Hi, Scorpio Risings. March could be a month that redefines or sort of re-equilibrates your future direction, relationships, and in a way where you could really be doing this by restructuring your daily life. But I think this really begins with a period of reflection and revision before that momentum returns. So, starting off on March 3rd with this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in your Virgo 11th house, this is actually activating and illuminating your 11th and your 5th house. So yes, this is a full moon eclipse in that 11th house, culminating and illuminating long-term goals, dreams, aspirations, social network, etc. But it's really highlighting this 5th house of creativity, self-expression, children, if applicable to you. So really highlighting this axis of sort of like your long-term future versus your present joy. Children, again, if applicable, and how that is aligning to sort of like a long-term goal, dream, aspiration. Your community versus your personal creative self-expression. And I think for a lot of you, just sort of like, what's the vision you have and what you want to build and how it truly fulfills you. So again, with this full moon lunar eclipse, really strong illumination, really energizing that 11th house, your goals, your networks, your collaboration, your role within a larger community. And some of you could be really focused and even with an eclipse, like forced to focus on the future you want to work towards. But the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury, and Mercury will be retrograde, also in detriment, technically in fall as well, in your Pisces 5th house. So whatever the bigger vision, goal, etc. is, you could really be simultaneously reviewing and revising what you create, which could be life with children, if applicable, what you're passionate about, romantic dynamics, your relationship to joy and self-expression. So some of you might be recognizing or contemplating the future path you want, or the future path you want to pursue, and how it's aligned to what brings you joy, what your heart's desire really is at this time, which could be creative, self-expressive. Again, it could involve children if applicable. And again, this Mercury retrogrades happen all the time. This is not like final. This is temporary. I just think that this is an opportunistic period to gain perspective in new ways and reflect on the themes of this axis going into March. Now, moving on to March 6th is the next day I want to get to, when Venus enters your Aries 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So this is where new cycles around your daily work, routines, health, even time and energy management could start to come into focus, where Venus rules your 7th house of personal and or professional partnerships, as well as your Libra 12th house of behind the scenes, subconscious thought patterns. So with Venus entering the 6th house of yours, you could start to make connections between relationships and commitments, sort of healing, closure work, what limits you, what sabotages you, and sort of redefining, even overexerting, right? Venus is in detriment in Aries. So overexerting, overextending yourself in getting clear around what you really want, what you really value regarding your work, your routines, your health. So a lot of you could be making those connections with your daily life and sort of the practical systems, right? The daily grind. But as Venus moves through your Aries 6th house, Venus is going to immediately apply to conjunctions or to merge with Neptune and Saturn here. So, new cycles Venus is forming, new stories to unfold with Venus. And again, these stories could include sort of what's going on for you behind the scenes, or it could include new cycles regarding personal and or professional partnerships that are going to play out. Where if we look at Saturn and what Saturn rules, that can give us clues as to what these new cycles that could involve marriage, personal partnerships, professional partnerships could involve with this new cycle with Venus. And Saturn rules your Aquarius 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, as well as your Capricorn 3rd house of communication, your community, siblings, extended family, really those people, places, and things within your everyday immediate environment. And this is significant because there could be, with this Venus creating a new cycle with Saturn in your 6th house, there could be restructuring happening around your living situation, your emotional foundations, the foundation that supports you, your health, your work. This could also include, with Venus ruling your 12th house, your mindset and your communication. Really, I think for a lot of Scorpio risings, you could be seeing the way your daily life supports or does not support your health, your work, which could include sort of that daily life could include a home, family, property, real estate theme for some of you. So some of you might be looking at where you live. And some of you might be looking at relationships with family and sort of what needs to be restructured, what needs to change to fully support, the work that you want to do and the vitality that you want to feel. And Neptune is there in the mix of things, I think, to help surrender and dissolve what no longer supports that future, what no longer is sustainable in the mix of what is transpiring or being reviewed and revised in March for a lot of you. And so I think, overall, a lot of Scorpio risings, you could be redefining what a sustainable daily life actually looks like and how that supports your health, your work, and sort of the emotional or even physical foundation of your lives. Now, jumping to March 18th or 19th, depending on where you are in the world, I'm Eastern Standard Time Zone, so I am on March 18th. We have a new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces 5th house of creativity, self-expression, romance, children, if applicable to you. So this could really be resetting those themes, creating a new chapter regarding those themes. But this new moon happens just before Mercury is about to station direct with the North Node in this 5th house of creativity, self-expression, children, if applicable to you. So this, for some of you, could feel like the beginning of some realignment, or the beginning of things feeling like maybe they're clicking into place, or that next step becomes a little bit more clear to you. But I want you to think back to last month's new moon. So the last new moon around mid-February, again, that was an eclipse, took place in your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, and that squared Uranus. So last month, there could have been tension, stress, or the desire to take action regarding your connection with others, personal, professional partnerships, something happening with relationships with family, something happening regarding, property, real estate, the foundation of your life. And that could have felt tense for some of you, where action was necessary to create a tangible result. Now with this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces 5th house, this new moon on March 18th sextiles Uranus in that 7th house of personal and or professional partnerships. The sextile is more opportunistic. It's a friendlier aspect. So again, this could be where this new moon, yes, is a new moon in this 5th house of creativity, self-expression, romance, children if applicable. But the sextile to Uranus, I think, is sort of like the opportunity that maybe comes after the revision, after the action you initiated last month or the stress or tension you felt last month. So again, this new moon, I think, is a potential opportunity between partnership and children, partnership and creativity, partnership and self-expression, or just like how you want to connect with others to create a more joyful, pleasurable experience in your life. So again, I think this could be the beginning of maybe initiating a new chapter in your creative life or romantic life that supports sort of just like more joy, more creativity, and just sort of like more of how you want to actually connect with the world for some of you. Now moving on to, let's see, what do I have next? I have March 20th. I want to finish the month out. So very shortly after this new moon takes place, on March 20th, Mercury stations direct conjunct with the North Node at 8 degrees in your Pisces 5th house of creativity, self-expression, romance, joy, children if applicable. So Mercury rules your 11th house of long-term goals and social network, as well as your Gemini 8th house of shared resources, long-term finances, transformational work, transformational decisions. So with Mercury stationing direct with the North Node, this could really amplify and sort of bring movement or the beginning of clarity, not totality. I mean, Mercury's still in Pisces, so I think we still got some time to kind of like actually feel and see that external movement or like the tangible results from this revisionary period. But I think at a minimum, a lot of you could be just feeling like, okay, like I can see it clicking into place. I can see that next step. But basically bringing movement and clarity with the other Mercury ruled areas, such as your 11th or your 8th, regarding sort of like long-term goals, collaboration, shared resources, deeper commitments that could be clicking into place in this area of children, creativity, self-expression, romance. So I think this is where a lot of Scorpio risings, like you could start to see maybe how plans are going to move forward, how dynamics are going to become more clear. And for some of you, like how financial or even energetic agreements can sort of like gain traction. But some of you could also see sort of like the beginning effects of how you're going to integrate more joy, more creativity, more self-expression into your lives. And I think that Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node in this 5th house really matters because April is a very active month for you regarding your 6th house of daily work and or health routines. So I think March is the opportunity for a significant reevaluation, recalibration of finding ways to integrate more joy, creativity to your future direction, to your long-term goals, so that when April arrives and you have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the Moon, and eventually a new moon in your Aries 6th house of daily work and or health routines, you're not just getting busy, you're actually, I think some of you could really become busier in building a daily life that actually supports the future you want to live in. Hi, Sagittarius Risings. We begin the month with a full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in your Virgo 10th house of career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So this could definitely be illuminating or culminating something regarding those themes, but this is really highlighting the 10th and 4th house axis. So this 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate themes as well with this full moon eclipse. So I think this could really be sort of highlighting the ongoing rebalancing, maybe between sort of your public life versus your private life, or where you're going versus where you're coming from. Now, the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury, and Mercury will be retrograde, also by essential dignity and detriment, technically in fall as well. So some of you could be reflecting, reviewing, and revising, maybe in ways where some of you could be overexerting yourselves or overextending yourselves with Mercury's essential dignity around this time. But a strong emphasis, I think, on reflecting home, family, living situations, your emotional, physical foundation, and maybe for some of you, even sort of revisiting decisions, reworking foundations, or maybe even gaining insight throughout March regarding what truly supports you, so that the outer direction, the career, the things that bring you more fulfillment can evolve in a more aligned way. So I think this is sort of a time of awareness or recalibration around the foundation of your lives, and maybe a little bit of your connections with others, whether they're personal or professional, and how it's really supporting the more public, visible area of your life that could be career related for some of you. Now, moving on to, let's see, what do I have next? March 6th. So March 6th, we have Venus entering your Aries 5th house of creativity, joy, self-expression, children, if applicable to you. So with Venus entering your Aries 5th house, I think this could create a new cycle with Neptune and Saturn. So Venus is going to immediately apply to a conjunction with Neptune and Saturn, theoretically creating a new cycle, a new story to unfold. So for you, Venus rules your Libra 11th house and your Taurus 6th house. So this could be integrating sort of like your long-term goals, your communities, collaborations, daily work, routines, and well-being, and sort of how that is affecting or having you look at your values regarding what brings you joy, your creativity, your self-expression, or children, if applicable to you. And as Venus sort of starts to merge with Saturn, I think there could be additional restructuring playing a part in potential stories or cycles starting to take place regarding your finances, self-worth, your skills, your voice, your learning, your overall mindset, because Saturn rules those areas in your chart, your 2nd house of earned income and your 3rd house of communication, exchanging information, siblings, extended family, again, really like those people, places, and things within your everyday environment. But if you are a creative or an artist that works with technology or communication, this could definitely be a time of emphasis and integrating that within your daily routines, your work, your long-term goals, your dreams and aspirations. So again, take what resonates, leave the rest. But I think with Neptune in the mix, Neptune's involvement here could suggest the ability to dissolve or surrender sort of old ways or old values of how you sort of defined your productivity. Some of you may be dissolving or surrendering, your role, like the role you feel you have to have within groups, So I think for some of you, you could be dissolving or redefining something more meaningful that could be helping you align to your long-term goals, your dreams, your aspirations. That could be work-related, health-related. That could also be tying in sort of finances, self-worth, etc. So now we move to March 18th. March 18th or 19th, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm Eastern Standard Time Zone, so I am sticking with March 18th, where we have this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So again, your 4th house, just as Mercury is about to station direct with the North Node, this new moon could be the beginning of a turning point. So this new moon is sextile Uranus in your Taurus 6th house of daily work and or health routines. Now, for a moment, I just want to bring your attention back to last month, roughly around mid-February, where you had a new moon eclipse square Uranus in that 6th house of daily work and or health routines. That could have been a little tense, a little stressful. There could have been a lot of action between something with your communication, technology, transportation, exchanging ideas, anything happening within your immediate environment and its effects to your work or your health routines, basically. Now, we get a much more supportive aspect between a new moon and this Uranus finishing its transit in that 6th house. So what may have been previously disruptive or required you to take action to create change, this new moon, I think, could offer the beginning of cultivating something new that maybe feels more grounding, more supportive to the foundation of your life after this reflection or revisionary period. That could help create opportunity to maybe even innovate your work, your health, your routines. So some of you, it could look like some of you could be, starting to create a new home environment that support your work and health. Maybe some of you are reorganizing your routines so they support something foundationally for you. And some of you could be making decisions about sort of like where and how you live to open up more possibilities for work, health, etc. So either way, this new moon compared to the last new moon, which was an eclipse, this time around feels a bit more opportunistic, less like we need to take action. We feel the tension. We need to create tangible change. So again, this sextile feels a bit more opportunistic after a reflection period of reviewing and revising maybe where you want to go with your career, your business, what feels more fulfilling to you, and what supports your personal and professional partnerships or the partnerships you do want to sort of attract in 2026. Then on March 20th, let's get to March 20th. So very shortly after this new moon takes place, March 20th, Mercury stations direct with the North Node in your Pisces 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So this is where you might start to see the initial effects of maybe restoring your momentum. Now, Mercury is still in Pisces, so by essential dignity, I think we are going to have some time to kind of like, it's going to be some time to actually see the externalization of this momentum for some of us. But this is where you could start to see that take place, the possibility of that sort of clicking into place or aligning. So some of you could really start to see the next step regarding career, visibility, direction. This could involve relationships, agreements, collaborations. And I think because so much of this month has been, I think, reviewing and revising. And I think for you, Sagittarius Risings, like pulling you back to the foundation that's going to support all the things that maybe you want to move towards or do in 2026 and onward. April looks like the time when things become extremely active regarding your fifth house. So creativity, output, passion projects, your heart's desire, children if applicable, romance, like things could really heat up for you regarding those fifth house themes in April. So I think March is sort of this revisionary period or recalibration of sort of redefining or realigning the foundation of your lives and how that supports your partnerships moving forward, as well as sort of like your overall career direction, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment, that could really be setting the stage for so much happening or launching regarding creativity, creative projects, self-expression, romance, children, really anything that what is your heart's desire moving forward in 2026, where once we get to April, I think that's when you're going to start to see the externalization of that forward momentum, lots of new beginnings and new cycles really starting to launch and initiate, where you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and eventually a new moon, all taking place in that fifth house, where you could really be taking the time to redefine and align the foundation that not only supports the career and the partnerships, but sort of where you maybe want to take things that feel more joyful to you, more passionate to you, more self-expressive to you in 2026. Hi, Capricorn Risings. As we begin the month with this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd, this is really activating your 3rd and 9th house axis going into March. So for you, Capricorn Risings, I think this could be about the illumination or culmination around your mindset, communication, learning, exchanging information, maybe even for some of you, your beliefs, your knowledge, and sort of the direction that is guiding your life and influencing your overall growth and potential. Now, for some of you, this could be more career related because this is involving the 3rd and the 9th. So depending on your natal chart, this could be career related, especially if you work in communication fields, technology, publishing, teaching, traveling, any of those things. So you could see some illumination around those themes, depending on your natal chart. Now, the ruler of this full moon lunar eclipse around 12 degrees in that Virgo 9th house is ruled by Mercury. And Mercury will be retrograde, also by essential dignity, in detriment, technically in fall as well. So perhaps some of you are navigating things in a slightly different way, a different perspective, depending on your natal chart. If you know that you have Mercury retrograde in your natal chart, this might not really resonate with you. This might not apply. So again, take what resonates, leave the rest. But generally speaking, this Mercury retrograde in this Pisces 3rd house could be sort of pulling you back to revise or contemplate decisions, daily things going on. So people, places, and things within your daily environment, conversations, maybe rewriting plans, taking care of tasks, appointments, phone calls, sort of revisiting things on a more mundane level. But some of you could be also sort of reconnecting with ideas, skills, or paths. Some of you could also be revisiting things that maybe in the past couple years you haven't been able to get around to with Saturn's transit going through this third house. So some of you might be sort of reworking some plans that affect your everyday lives. Again, those people, places, and things. And I think this could really be about gaining a new perspective on sort of where you're going and how you're getting there, right? So like what are you coming back to in your everyday immediate environment that affects sort of the bigger picture in your lives, the overall growth and potential, right? Like on a very mundane level, as an example, you have to take care of appointments, you have to pay bills, you have to do these things in order for you to, go back to school or continue your education or travel plans. So it's sort of like the everyday mundane, taking care of that and revisiting it for some of you, and how that is setting the stage or contributing to the bigger picture that you want to focus on in 2026. So again, this is not conclusive. I think that this Mercury retrograde is just a time of awareness, revision, recalibration, and with it being in Pisces, just in a different way. Some of you might be reevaluating it in new ways or going about it sort of feeling like it's new territory for you. Then the next day I want to jump to is March 6th. So on March 6th, that is when Venus enters your Aries 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. Now, as Venus enters this Aries 4th house of yours, Venus will immediately apply to conjunctions with Neptune and Saturn, technically creating new cycles, new stories to unfold. And this, for you, Venus rules your Libra 10th house of career, business, public recognition, what brings you fulfillment, as well as your Taurus 5th house of joy, creativity, self-expression, or children if applicable to you. So depending on what is resonating, what is applicable to you, you could be merging those themes while you're maybe starting something new foundationally. Maybe some of you are looking at sort of new ways to exist within the home, new redecoration, relocation, new stories and cycles that can take place foundationally in your lives that support your children, your creativity, that feels more joyful to you. But also with Venus ruling the 10th house of career, or what feels fulfilling to you, I think some of you could really be starting new cycles that could involve sort of new foundations to support the career, the business, the public recognition, what feels more fulfilling to you. But I think a lot of you could be looking at the foundational part of your lives and what is really going to support that. Now, with Venus applying to Saturn, Saturn rules your first house of the physical body, the self, as well as your Aquarius 2nd house of earned income and self-worth. So some of you could really be also tying in financial themes to what is going to support the foundation of your life, your home, your family, your property, your real estate themes. That is going to support you foundationally, but could also be tying in the finances that are going to support that. What is going to support you physically, your ability to take independent action. So again, tying in those financial themes and also what is going to really support you and your ability to move towards the direction you want to take. Now, Neptune is involved in the mix of this. So Neptune could be sort of shifting the perspective, shifting the boundaries. It could be surrendering or dissolving things that no longer support that overall direction that a lot of you could be looking at, either financially, children if applicable, again, career, what feels fulfilling to you. But again, the emphasis looks like a lot of you are looking at sort of ground level, the foundation that you could be changing or strengthening in some way, shape, or form to support where you want to take things in 2026. So I think this could also be sort of, for some of you, restructuring the relationship to yourselves. How much have, some of you might be able to look back in the past couple of years of some really intense eclipses and transits. Some of you with Saturn involved here might be able to look back over the past couple of years and sort of, you could be now restructuring the relationship to who you are now, what you're building, what you're here to create. But looking at it from a foundational perspective of like what's going to support you financially, physically, creatively, children if applicable, as well as sort of the overall direction you want to take your career. And then I want to jump to, let's see, the next day I have is March 18th or 19th, depending on what time zone you're in. I am Eastern Standard Time, so I'm going to stick to March 18th, when we have this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces third house. So this new moon takes place just before Mercury is about to station direct conjunct the North Node here, which I think is very significant. But just sticking to the new moon for now, this new moon I think could be a mental or directional reset. So some of you could be really looking at sort of your neighborhood, your community, your communication, exchanging information, transportation, siblings, extended families. Again, sort of like those everyday people, places, and things in your immediate environment that you're working with, you're interacting with. A lot of you could be really setting sort of like new chapters and new ways of sort of your everyday immediate environment. And this new moon is sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus fifth house of joy, creativity, self-expression, children, if applicable. So I want you to think back to last month, mid-February-ish. That's when the last new moon took place in your second house of earned income and self-worth, which was also an eclipse. So the last new moon to take place squared Uranus in this fifth house. That could have created some tension, the need to take action between your finances, your budget, your maybe situations playing out with children, again, if applicable, your creativity, your self-expression. For some of you, it could have been like home, family, property, real estate related, depending on your natal chart. But there were, for some of you, this strong financial theme that required you to take action or, change something. Now, the next new moon that we're on now on March 18th sextiles this Uranus. That's a friendlier, a bit more supportive aspect. It's also not an eclipse, so it's a little less charged, theoretically speaking. So I think whatever action you were taking or whatever you were dealing with last month, this new moon in your third house could be the time where maybe you're starting to see the opportunity or sort of the opening or the first step to kind of initiate. So maybe what felt disruptive or required change last month for some of you, this new moon could, I think, give you this opportunity to not only begin something new, but maybe take an opportunity for like a new way, something new with your children, something new romantically, a new creative direction, new ways of self-expression, and maybe for some of you, even in a way that feels more supportive to you in your everyday environment. So this could be the beginning of something that is going to ultimately cultivate and grow over the coming months, where once we get to March 20th, so for some of you, the next day, so very shortly after this new moon, Mercury is going to station direct conjunct the North Node again in this third house. So yes, it's stationing direct in this third house. So some of you could see that forward momentum, or it is a Mercury in Pisces. So maybe not the totality of clarity and forward direction. Mercury is still in detriment technically in fall. So you might see the first step, or you might see things sort of click into place, but that actual forward momentum, that externalization, maybe even a more tangible feeling around that momentum, I don't think for a lot of us collectively is going to be seen until April. Now, some of you might, this isn't conclusive, but I think with Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node, I think this could be something that kind of clicks into place, aligns you to sort of where you want to focus. Maybe some of you have been taking care of a lot of things in order to get to this juncture. Either way, this new moon is also potentially creating new outcomes to Mercury-ruled areas. And for you, this is your Gemini 6th house of daily work, health, and routines, as well as your Virgo 9th house of growth and potential. So for some of you, this could be higher knowledge, spirituality, truth, belief, travel. And if you're in publishing, teaching, you travel for work, again, this could be work related for some of you as well. So this could really also bring forward momentum and new outcomes to your work, your routines, your daily responsibilities, your long-term direction, travel, education, publishing, or just sort of the big picture that you are focusing on this year. So I think for a lot of Capricorn risings, this could be sort of March is like the month of revising the plans, what you need to take care of, sort of exchanging information, just sort of the everyday things in your environment that affect your work, that affect your health, your routines, the overall growth and potential that you want to move towards. And all in all, March, I think, is preparing a lot of Capricorn risings for what looks like a very busy April in your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So once you get into April, I think this is where things might really take off for you, where a lot of you could not only see that forward momentum, but because when you get to April, you're going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the moon, and eventually a new moon in this 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So a lot of activity there. But for you Capricorn risings, this is an angular house. So this is also sort of creating change to what supports you versus the others in your life. So personal and or professional partnerships, and the necessary balance for some of you regarding, what's going on with career, business, public recognition, or what brings you fulfillment. So definitely think about what is transpiring in March as you're listening to this, maybe going into March, and how this is sort of preparing you for the movement, decisions, activity to home, living situation, family dynamics, or just the overall deeper structural foundation that is going to support personal and professional partnerships, and the overall direction you want to take your career or the things that bring you fulfillment. Hi, Aquarius Risings. We are really kicking off the month on March 3rd with this full moon lunar eclipse at 12 degrees in your Virgo 8th house. I do have a whole separate episode on this, so if you guys haven't checked that out yet, definitely check that out. But for you Aquarius risings, I think this is really highlighting the 2nd and 8th house axis, where some of you could be seeing sort of the evolution of your resources, your self-worth, shared finances, or energetic exchanges. Some of you might be seeing sort of like how to create mutual empowerment in personal and or professional partnerships. Again, take what resonates, leave the rest. But some of you might also be sort of seeing or exploring the deeper emotional and psychological contracts in your life, like where you balance those resources, whether they're physical, emotional, spiritual. And some of you could be sort of reflecting back on your value system, the foundation of your value system, with the ruler of this eclipse being Mercury, and Mercury being retrograde in that second house of earned income and self-worth. So maybe more superficially, some of you might be sort of reviewing and revising, how you earn, what you're spending, budgets, what you value, aligning sort of current resources with where you want to go, what you want to invest in or pay off. But on a deeper level, I think some of you could be sort of reminiscing, reviewing, revising, contemplating your value system, maybe even in new ways or with new perspectives, because Mercury is in detriment, technically in fall. So you might be doing it in ways that feel a little foreign, feel a little different for you. But sort of reviewing or taking a look at what security means to you. What is sort of the foundation of your value system? Not just money. This isn't just about, yes, these are financial houses being highlighted for sure. But for some of you, this might be more about other types of currency in your life, energetic exchanges, agreements, giving and receiving, just redefining even what security means to you. And again, this is not super conclusive. I think this is just a time of recalibration, reflection on how Saturn has changed in the past couple years, maybe what you value, how you handle money, how your relationship with money, what you consider mutual empowerment, supportive resources, etc. Now, the next day I want to get to is March 6th. So moving on to March 6th, we have Venus entering your Aries third house of communication, exchanging information, technology, transportation. That could be personal or professional, as well as siblings, extended family, your community. So again, people, places, and things within your everyday environment. And for you, Venus rules your Libra 9th house and your Taurus 4th house. So regarding your everyday immediate environment, Venus could be sort of merging or making connections to your long-term vision, your beliefs, travel, study, teaching, publishing, as well as sort of the home foundation, family patterns, or just even that emotional foundation that supports that. So some of you could be taking care of like appointments, tasks, communication, exchanging information, taking care of things in your everyday immediate environment that might be setting the stage for things to transpire foundationally in your lives, but also sort of, what you want to focus on in terms of the bigger picture, which could be career related for some of you. Now, as Venus merges, Venus immediately starts to merge and form a conjunction with Neptune and Saturn as Venus enters your Aries third house on March 6th. And so this could be really important for Aquarius risings because Saturn rules your first house of the self, the physical body, how you take independent action. And it also rules your Capricorn 12th house of behind the scenes. What's going on mentally? What's going on with subconscious thought patterns? What's going on behind the scenes for you? that Venus could be sort of kicking off new cycles, yes, in your third house, but really kicking off a new cycle or maybe even a new story to unfold that could be about restructuring your sense of self, restructuring sort of what's going on behind the scenes for you and integrating that with more visibility. And some of you could sort of be doing like a redefining of your life, not only foundationally. So some of you could be really kicking off new cycles on focusing on what's the home, family, property, real estate, renovations, redecorations that's going to support your growth and potential, which could be career related. And how is that going to support you not only physically and foundationally, but also mentally? How is that going to support you, your need for solitude, your need to maybe retreat from the world, if that resonates? So this could not only be sort of foundational and growth and potential. I think some of you could be really thinking about, how can I also create this to where it supports my mental health? It supports me and my need for rest and recharge. It supports my physical body, my ability to take independent action, etc. Now, as we move, before I jump to the new moon, when Venus forms this conjunction and a new cycle, a new story to unfold, as I just discussed, Neptune will be in the midst of this. So some of you might really be sort of thinking about what needs to surrender, what needs to dissolve that doesn't support this new future around you, what you've been working on behind the scenes, that could also be heavily influencing how you look at the foundation of your lives and the overall growth and potential you want to move towards. So Neptune could be shifting things around a little bit, or literally dissolving and surrendering things that don't really support that new story or that new structure that could be on your mind for a lot of Aquarius risings. Now we can move on to the new moon on March 18th or 19th. Depending on what time zone you are in. I am Eastern Standard Time Zone, so I'm sticking with March 18th. And this March 18th is when we have this new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth. So this could be, a new chapter or sort of reset around your income, your self-worth, your values, the way you support yourself physically, but also energetically. Maybe for some of you on a deeper level, it's like less about money and it's more about your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual value system. Really setting sort of new ways regarding that can really unfold in the coming months. But this new moon in your second house is sextile Uranus in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So I want you to think back to the last new moon, which was an eclipse in your first house of self. That new moon last month, around mid-February, squared Uranus in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So some of you could have felt sort of like the need for change or the need for action around, relationships with family, a living situation, property, real estate, renovations, anything within those themes of home, family, property, and real estate. Some of you could have felt a little tense. It could have felt a little stressful, right? Stress and tension tend to get us up to do the thing, which is why squares can be very action oriented to create a new tangible result. So some of you could have really been sort of stepping into this eclipse energy that a lot of you, with it being in that first house last month around mid-February, could have felt viscerally, you could have felt very personal to you as an Aquarius rising. But that square, you know, could have created that tension between your first house of self and your fourth house of home and family. And this time, with this new moon at 28 degrees in your second house of earned income on March 18th, this new moon, compared to last month, is sextile, which is a bit more of a supportive aspect. I like to think of sextiles as an opportunistic aspect. So maybe the changes, the disruptions, the action that was happening last month in February, mid-February, for a lot of us, this new moon on March 18th or around March 18th, I think could be sort of the opportunity to intentionally begin sort of like a new value system, a new financial path, a new way of creating stability, or a new relationship to money, resources, your self-worth that creates opportunity to create last minute innovation or change to your foundation that supports that. So this isn't just about money. I think this could also be an opportunity to maybe change or innovate your family dynamics, your living situation, renovations, property, real estate. Again, any of those foundational themes that this time I think could be a more opportunistic, supportive aspect that is forward-looking, because this new moon could really be kind of like setting the new intention that is ultimately going to unfold over the coming months. Then when we get to March 20th, so shortly after this new moon that took place in your second house, March 20th is when Mercury stations direct conjunct the North Node at 8 degrees in that second house of earned income and self-worth. So I think this is where, because the North Node is involved, this is where you could start to feel things click into place or start to see the potential for the forward momentum. Now, this is a Mercury in Pisces. So by essential dignity, I don't think this is like a very, A to B, B to C kind of Mercury going on here. So it might take some time to see the actual, tangible, visible externalization of that forward momentum that you might have been reviewing, revising, kind of slowed down around in this area. But it's still Mercury direct conjunct the North Node. So I think there is something clicking into place that might feel aligning to a lot of you, that might need some time to continue that forward momentum and, like I said, create that externalization of those results. But I think this could also start to create new outcomes after this revisionary period to Mercury-ruled areas, such as your Virgo 8th house and your Gemini 5th house. So sort of new outcomes or new potentials could arise at this point moving forward to your 8th house of shared resources, investments, deeper commitments, energetic exchanges, mutual empowerment. For some of you, it might just be like general long-term financial themes, investments, assets, debt, loans. And again, the other Mercury ruled area. So potential new outcomes clicking into place with a Mercury direct conjunct the North Node. Also influencing or creating new outcomes to sort of your creativity, your joy, passion projects, what you're giving life to, whether it's, your romance, your artistry, life itself, children, if applicable. So this could be the initial effects of clarity that you're gaining, not only around your worth and your resources, that can move into action, but also particularly how you collaborate, how you invest and express yourselves. So I think all of this throughout March is really the preparation for what looks like a very active April, where you are going to have Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the Sun, and eventually a new moon, all stacked up in this Aries third house. So again, March could be that recalibration, that revisionary period that is prepping you for a very busy, initiating, even very strong forward momentum in your Aries third house, where you could see a lot of action around conversations, decisions, contracts, appointments, short distance travel, communication, technology, especially if you work in those fields, writing, learning, again, content creation, communication, movement, depending on what you do, whatever resonates around those themes, and sort of what is keeping you busy, what is happening in your everyday lives, your neighborhood, your community, and that could really be firing up, could really be kicking off. Now, again, like I said, if you work in communication fields, technology, transportation, this could really be strong, like new content creation, new ways of exchanging information, new ways of working in your neighborhood, your community. But for some of you on a personal level, this could impact sort of siblings, extended family. So things going on with them that could really fire up or initiate around this time too. So all in all, I think this is where everything really starts to pick up speed. And March is a great time for Aquarius risings, I think, to kind of take a step back. Like I said in the intro, like you might not feel like there's forward movement. You might not feel like there's results, but the more you kind of pull back, the more you review, revise, sort of perfect, your value system. What do you value? Your innate gifts, talents, financial themes, how you can create mutual empowerment in your lives. It could really, really kick off and create a lot of forward momentum and speed going into April of 2026. Hi, Pisces Risings. We begin the month on March 3rd. We're pretty much going into March with this full moon eclipse energy culminating on March 3rd around 12 degrees in your Virgo 7th house of personal and professional partnerships. Now, this eclipse on March 3rd, yes, it's in the area of the other, your connections with others, marriage, if applicable, personal, professional partnerships, but it's really highlighting your first and your 7th house axis. So this is really highlighting sort of your needs versus the needs of others, the self versus partnership, and sort of your body and ability to take independent action versus the actions of others. And for some of you, this could be sort of illuminating the kinds of relationships and agreements you are moving towards or desire in 2026. Again, take what resonates, leave the rest. But the ruler of this full moon eclipse in that 7th house of partnership is ruled by Mercury. And Mercury will be retrograde and in detriment, technically in fall as well, in your first house of self. So some of you might be with Mercury's essential dignity and also retrograde. You're not only reviewing and revising, but you could be doing it in ways that feels foreign to you. It feels like new territory. You might be taking on perspectives that you've never really had before. Now, some of you with this Mercury retrograde in this first house at the time of this eclipse could be sort of reworking or rethinking who you are, how you show up, what really supports your physical body, ability to take independent action. Some of you might be revising sort of your image, your role in personal and or professional partnerships. So all in all, again, this could just be a period of sort of recalibrating yourself and how you connect with others. But for some of you, this could include home, family, property, real estate themes, with Mercury also ruling this fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So some of you might also be looking at a living situation, relationships with family, property, real estate themes, and sort of how it's impacting you or how it really supports you and how you connect with others or those long-term partnerships in your lives, if applicable. So I think some of you could start to see things maybe differently regarding those themes and sort of start to revise or recalibrate the shifts that you want to make in the following weeks. So again, this is a Mercury retrograde. It's not conclusive. It's not final. It's, these Mercury retrogrades happen ever so often, and it's just a time of awareness to sort of process. Now, moving on to, let's see, we've got March 6th is the next date I want to jump to. When Venus enters your Aries second house of earned income and self-worth. So Venus rules your Libra 8th house and your Taurus 3rd house. So as Venus enters this area of finances, self-worth for you, Venus could start to pull your attention or integrate themes involving shared resources, investments, assets, debt, partners' resources, and sort of what's being communicated. What are you learning? How are you exchanging information? What's going on in your daily environment that impacts the finances, the big decisions, the transformational work, and again, shared resources if applicable. So I think yes, Venus is entering this financial house, but I think Venus ruling your 3rd house and your 8th house, there could be some communication, exchanging information around finances. The 3rd house is also siblings, extended family. So some of you could be sort of also making sort of transformational decisions, looking at what's going on with those relationships to those individuals. So some of you might be more personal with siblings, extended family, and your self-worth, and making transformational decisions or doing transformational work to approach those in a new way. And some of you, it might be, I think, more financial, your value system, and looking at sort of your immediate resources versus your long-term resources and what's being communicated or exchanged around this time. But when Venus enters your Aries second house, Venus will immediately apply to conjunctions with Neptune and Saturn, creating a new cycle and thus a new story to unfold regarding this area of earned income and self-worth. So Venus is also merging with Saturn, where there could be restructuring to play out over the next, I'd say roughly 18 months. Restructuring around sort of maybe a long-term vision, healing and closure work, your relationship to the past, what's going on mentally. So some of you could be really kind of looking at or creating new cycles and new stories to unfold that also heavily involve sort of where you want to go long term, who you want to surround yourselves with, what's going on mentally, and how that's playing a part with sort of or impacting your value system, your self-worth. So not just money, it could be a lot deeper than that. And some of you might be communicating, exchanging information in order to initiate this new restructuring around those themes. Now, Neptune is here to potentially sort of surrender or dissolve those outdated mental patterns, maybe outdated ways of communicating, release those limiting beliefs, self-sabotage thoughts or behaviors. And some of you might be sort of like shifting your perspective around your social network as well, how you relate to them, how you want to kind of redefine your boundaries with personal and professional social networks, as you are really looking at sort of your value system that could include finances and self-worth. So I think this could also, for some Pisces risings, really be sort of like a new cycle to restructure the way you think, but also the way you speak, exchange, and even receive support from a place of value, from a place of self-worth, and really sort of redefining those things in a way that could shift your perspective on who you connect with and your long-term goals. Then I want to jump to, let's see, March 18th or 19th, it looks like, depending on your time zone. I am Eastern Standard Time Zone, so I'm going to stick to, it looks like March 18th here. So March 18th, you will have a new moon at 28 degrees in your Pisces first house of the self, the physical body, how you take independent action. And so this could be a really important reset for Pisces risings, as this is happening in your first house of self and the physical body. And this is really coming after this revisionary period where Mercury is about to station direct conjunct the North Node in the first house of self. So again, I think this could be this important beginning around a reset for a lot of Pisces risings. Now, this new moon is sextile Uranus at 28 degrees in your Taurus third house. But I want you to think back to last month, around the last new moon, which was an eclipse that took place in your Aquarius 12th house. So about mid-February, some of you might have felt it a little earlier, a little later, but last month there was the last new moon that took place, and that squared Uranus. So, and it was an eclipse. So that could have created some action, some tension, where some of you might have been really taking action around maybe your need for solitude, maybe communicating what's been on your mind, maybe kind of being more aware of like unconscious patterns versus sort of like new ways of thinking and speaking. This could have brought up a lot of things that could have initially been behind the scenes that now is sort of was visible to you, and you could have been taking action to create tangible changes to what's going on mentally for you, what's affecting you behind the scenes, that maybe you reached a point where it's like, now I can see it. I can see what it was, and being able to communicate and sort of take action around that. Now, whatever it was last month, that square could have created tension, a bit of stress for some of you. Now, this next new moon, again, taking place on March 18th, is sextile this Uranus. This is a bit more supportive, even opportunistic. So maybe for some of you, this was, last month there was clearing, healing, taking action around what's been going on for you behind the scenes, affecting you mentally, affecting your need for sleep, solitude, rest, and recharge, even for some of you, and being able to kind of take action around innovating what's going on in your everyday environment in order to do so. So again, take what resonates, leave the rest. But regardless, whatever happened last month, I think this new moon could be the point where a lot of Pisces risings see the opportunity that feels less stressful, less tense. So this could be the moment where you could feel that initiating effect regarding sort of like a new version of you, a new voice, a new way of moving through the world, or Some of you, it could just be more physical, where you want to kind of step into initiating a new chapter of supporting your physical body, your appearance, how you want to take independent action in the world. And it could just be a moment where you've reflected a lot with this Mercury retrograde and are ready to kind of initiate this new chapter that is more personal to you. Then after this new moon, on March 20th, we have Mercury stationing direct conjunct the North Node in that first house of the self, the physical body, how you take independent action. So this is where you might start to feel things clicking into place, things even feeling more aligned, especially with the North Node involved. And this is still a Mercury in Pisces. So Mercury is still in detriment, technically in fall. So is it going to be, I think, this like really momentous forward, everything's great, I think it might take some time. So if you're feeling like you're not getting so much momentum, that could be normal with Mercury in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces is not always necessarily like A to B, B to C, C to D. So it might take some time to kind of really gain that externalization. But again, this is happening in an angular house for Pisces risings. So some of you could see really that external visible change with this, depending on your natal chart. But if you're not, give it some time. Either way, I think this is where you could start to see sort of things clicking into place. You can see the next step, at least. And because Mercury rules your Virgo 7th house and your Gemini 4th house, this could create sort of new outcomes after this revisionary period to your living situation, home, property, real estate, as well as sort of new outcomes to how you connect with others, new outcomes or new ways of being within personal and or professional partnerships. So again, this could be bringing you back to balancing your needs versus the needs of others, and sort of what is going to ultimately support you foundationally, whether it's relationships with family, changing something foundationally to support you. And so all in all, I think this is where things, again, could start to kick into gear. That is preparing you for what looks like an extremely busy month in your Aries 2nd house of earned income and self-worth in April. So again, March, I think, could be this really strong period to kind of pull back, review, revise, get clear on things for you, Pisces rising. Get clear on your communication. Get clear on what's been going on for you behind the scenes, what's been affecting your mental health, your need for rest, solitude, recharge, and also what's been going on with your connections with others, your partnerships, home, family, foundational things that has affected you, even affected you for maybe the past couple years. And you're getting sort of maybe redefining that or reorganizing that to move forward in 2026. That, again, March could be that recalibration or reviewing and revising those themes that is really helping you prepare for Mercury, Mars, the Sun, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Chiron, the Moon, and eventually a new moon, all piling up in the 2nd house of earned income and self-worth as you move into April. So it's sort of like, what is going to support you, balancing you versus your connections with others? What was going on behind the scenes, maybe mentally, that needed to be communicated? Also looking at sort of the foundation of your life, but ultimately how all of those things may have been on the table for reviewing, revising, and initiating sort of new cycles with resources, how you communicate with the world, and sort of restructuring things so that when you step into April, you could be shaping a new material reality a new value system. So some of you might step into April really gaining a lot of momentum and creating a lot of new stories to really kick into gear and unfold throughout 2026, where you could be changing your relationship to money. You could be changing your relationship to sort of your value system, really emphasizing your self-worth, etc., moving into 2026.